But there are viruses that cause cancer. They're called oncoviruses. This has become another specialty of mine. We know of 6 or 7 viruses that cause cancer. HPV, we all know about that, for cervical cancer. Hepatitis C for liver cancer, and other cancers. Merkel cell carcinoma, we know about that. Did you know that 73% of all anti-cancer drugs are sourced from nature still? The pharmaceutical industry does not want you to know this. So we were funded by NIH for a $2.1 million breast cancer clinical study, phase 1 study, which has now been completed. And yesterday on the news throughout Seattle, the phase 2 and phase 3 studies were announced by the FDA and NIH based on the positive results in this first study, which used our mushroom mycelium of turkey tails, which grows everywhere here, wherever there's wood. And so prior to radiation therapy for stage 2, stage 3, non-ER, non-estrogen responsive breast cancer, but then the ER responsive were also brought into the group. Then prior to radiation, with 3 grams of turkey tail mycelium versus 6, there was a dose-dependent increase in your natural killer cells. The red is no treatment at all. Directly after radiation, you're immunologically compromised, you're depressed, your immune system's been damaged as well from the radiation. And then 2 weeks later, on a dose-dependent basis, the immune system expands, and then it expands even more. And so in 4 weeks, there's a tremendous fortitude of your immune system. We all have cancer all the time. Nature is a numbers game. Cancer is a numbers game. How many coefficients can you get on your side of the equation that will result in your surviving cancer? This is the race against disease. So we achieve statistical significance. For those of you who are into significance, look at that significance. It's actually 0.0003. Hugely significant. Now, Fred Hutch Cancer Center, because of Merkel cell carcinoma, I don't have time to go through this, but we have some best case studies that's just been published in a medical journal. Only 2 of the 10 surviving patients from Merkel cell carcinoma in the world were taking our mycelium. They've been written up in medical journals now. And Dr. Paul Nim, I call it the Nim hypothesis, is that the cancer is cloaked from the immune system. Your immune system's active. You're producing the natural killer cells and cytotoxic T cells, but they can't lock and load. They can't find binding sites on the receptors of the stroma, the skin of the tumors. And so the tumors evade the immune system detection. With these mushrooms as an adjunct, the immune system is alerted and is able to invade the tumors. So on the right, there's immune invasion of natural killer cells and cytotoxic T cells that are able to go past the stroma, locate the tumors, and then break them apart. Now, this became especially personal to me in June of 2009, when my mother, who's a very religious woman, who has not seen a doctor since 1968, calls me up on the phone and says, "Paul, I have something very important to talk to you about, but you're always so busy." I go, "Oh, no." I said, "What's wrong?" My mother's a very cheery woman, and she started crying. And she says, "Paul, my right breast is 5 times the size of my left. I have 6 angry lymph nodes on my right side. They're big and black and swollen." And her voice was shaking. "I'm scared." And I said, "Why didn't you tell me?" And she goes, "Well, a Christian scientist came through with a Nomarsky microscope and said, 'You don't have cancer.'" I go, "Oh, no." I spent most of June at cancer hospitals in Seattle. The second visit, we got the worst news. My mother was given less than 3 months to live. The tumor was beginning to erupt, through her breast. It metastasized, crossed the meridian, invaded her bones, her sternum, went to her liver. And we had the circle meeting, and my mother said, "I'm dying, and you're not going to buy an expensive casket." I bought a casket, the cheapest one we can find. I'm going to Jesus, so I already bought the casket. So we had the circle meeting, lots of tears. And then on the second or third visit, the doctor said, "You're too old for a mastectomy. You can't have radiation therapy. Ma'am, a lot of women have their lives stolen from them in their 40s and 50s with the same cancer. You're 84. You've lived a long life. You should be happy. But you should prepare for the end now. There's nothing that we can do for you." They put her on Taxol briefly. She had an adverse reaction. They put her on Herceptin. And then the doctor said, "But there's this interesting breast cancer clinical study going on with turkey tail mushrooms. You might want to try those too." And that's when my mother said, "Well, my son's supplying those." So she kind of had to hear from a doctor. So my mother started taking turkey tail mushrooms, capsules, 8 per day in combination with her Septin. And 6 months later, and to this day, she has no detectable tumors whatsoever.
Mushroom mycelium represents rebirth, rejuvenation, regeneration. Fungi generate soil that gives life. The task that we face today is to understand the language of nature. My mission is to discover the language of nature of the fungal networks that communicate with the ecosystem. And I believe nature is intelligent. The fact that we lack the language skills to communicate with nature does not impugn the concept that nature is intelligent. It speaks to our inadequacy for communication. If we don't get our act together and come in commonality and understanding with the organisms that sustain us today, not only will we destroy those organisms, but we will destroy ourselves. We need to have a paradigm shift in our consciousness. What will it take to achieve that? If I die trying, but I'm inadequate to the task to make a course change in the evolution of life on this planet, okay, I tried. The fact is, I tried. How many people are not trying? If you knew that every breath you took could save hundreds of lives into the future, had you walked down this path of knowledge, wouldn't you run down that path of knowledge as fast as you could? I believe nature is a force of good. Good is not only a concept, it is a spirit. And so hopefully the spirit of goodness will survive.